There is a great divide in between the rich and the poor, a chasm which gets wider, an impossible feat to have these converge. The irrational market doesn't react in a careful and calculated pattern as it should. It wildly reacts, causing dramatic charts which will go down in the history books. You came here for the truth. Let's look at these charts today. I'm going to show you specific focus on the US today, but of course it applies all around the world in one degree or another. These are very dramatic charts, at least according to my opinion. Healthcare spending has grown much faster than the rest of the economy in recent decades. Look at this. This colored line here, 818%, that's your national healthcare expenditures. Then you look at the GDP. We're going back from 1960s. If you just look at the ratio in between these two here, it's crazy. Compare that, though, as bad as that is, with wages, which have been pretty much bottomed out the entire time. Our wages have barely increased over these several decades. Think about that for a second. While everything else is getting more expensive, your wage, your income, is staying relatively flat. And they do this with intention. I have more to say about this in a moment, but I just want to make this point that, of course, you need to have both people working, unable to stay at home. One of those individuals, is struggling now to make ends meet. Whereas 1970, that was very possible. You didn't have to be, the top executive in your company to be able to have basic things in your life. But now it seems like everyone is in the rat race and everyone seems to be drowning. It's just the way it is. Look at this. Federal government, consumer credit, student loans, asset. The new normal, your federal government supports soaring student debt and debt serfdom. So you have that, if you just take this right here, you'll see this line is staggering to begin with. The ratio at which it increases is dramatic. But, what if that's staggering, then what is this? Is that the hockey stick? It's crazy the amount of debt, how quickly it expanded. It looks like when the Federal Reserve introduced QE into the system and their balance sheet went up straight. That's basically what this looks like. It, of course, took place over a few-year period, but still, it hasn't been that long. And it's something that eventually has to burst. Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers, rent of primary residence. Okay? So, they're quoting here 56% increase in urban rents from 2000 to 2015. A dramatic increase which has occurred. They're showing you, this short period of time, but it's something that continues every single year, give or take. You're looking at rents increasing. This is while housing prices are increasing, while wages are staying relatively stagnant. That eventually, people are wondering, I'm getting tired, I can't wait for the crisis any longer. This is getting boring. Well, if you look at these, if people literally can't buy stuff anymore because it's too expensive, At some point, you're either going to have the individual being bailed out by the government, or you're going to have riots in the streets. Either one could happen. It could go either direction. It could happen. Both could happen. The rich get richer. Oh, how much I love that. The rich get richer. Gap between the top and the bottom wage earners continues to widen. Looks very similar to the last chart, but just look at the way that this is. It's, well, just to clarify, the red or pinkish color here, 90th percentile of earnings, $2,000 a week. 10th percentile of earnings, $400 per week. And it's something that if you look down the road, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, this will continue to get worse and worse and worse. These are very steady charts. In fact, if you want to make a prediction and put some money on it, this probably would be a good idea. Look how consistent these charts have been. It's been amazing, to say the least. Let's move on. 60-day delinquency balances by state. Loans and leases regardless of origination period. This is talking about cars. And all I wanted to know from this was simply that it looks like a sea of red. There is a very large percentage of these loans that are becoming delinquent. And that says they simply can't pay back. That's what it's speaking to me. And I'm sure you see the same thing. Now, I've shown this chart before, but it's been updated during the duration of the U.S. business cycle in months. We are now sitting at the third longest business cycle ever in U.S. history. I mean, you have things that go back into the 1800s, for example. Look at this, 1861. But we're at number 3 right now. Prior to that, you had the 60s, and number 1 is basically the 90s. And if it continues on for approximately 2 more years, it will be the longest business cycle in history. That doesn't mean that it can't stretch out that far, but in the 90s, you have to think about this, coming out of 1980, where you had extremely high interest rates, and the interest rates continued throughout the 90s, continued to decline a significant level. That spurs that stock market boom, getting into housing, getting into everything. And then, of course, the 60s, where stuff was actually made in the country and people had jobs and the economy was doing much, much better than it is today. You have more of a reason for it to go on that long. But of course, it seems like it could extend on forever and ever. As long as the QE train, let's have some fun here. The QE train is going, it can push it further and further. Last but not least, this is out of Deutsche Bank, and they predicted, I believe it was in relation to the Federal Reserve discussion that occurred, and they said that they are anticipating, if a recession hits in 2020, the Federal Reserve will have a massive amount of purchases that they will be making. They already have it ready. They know specifically that they've done QE1, QE2, then QE3, and then you'll have to guess at what's going to happen with QE4. So it shouldn't surprise anybody that should there encounter a recession, I don't necessarily think it's going to happen in 2020. I mean, it could happen at any time. It just shows that they're ready to start pumping up the market when they need to. They actually use the term in this article here, with this, where the charts were from, of $1 trillion is in preparation. Now, the Federal Reserve didn't say that. That was Deutsche Bank. But it shows how much they're willing to put down. $1 trillion is a significant amount in today's day and age. There's no doubt about that. So I'm waiting for QE4. I don't know about you. Eventually, it's going to have to happen. At this time, of course, the stock market is rising. But what if the stock market just declines a little bit and more and more and more? Companies will demand higher corporate profits. Companies may start laying people off. And then all of a sudden, the trickle effect takes place. So be aware. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you will find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. You can actually look through the book. If you go over to Amazon, they have a look inside feature that will allow you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it. Take care. Don't forget, one last thing, I had brought the prices of the Kindle versions of both of my books. The new book is out as well, down. They're currently selling, as of this recording, on Amazon for $7.58. So definitely check that out.